Well, thank you for joining me for the broadcast today. I'm going to continue with my series on marriage. I hope you've been enjoying it. We always enjoy dealing with couples with marriage and just to help them to come into a better and more meaningful relationship together. And so today I'm going to talk about the differences in the men and women's differences. They have different perspectives. They have different ways of communication. And so I'm going to try to break this down with some of the things that we have learned and researched over the years. You might find some of it a bit amusing, but I think that it will be helpful for you in the long run. So we're just going to get started right now. So men tend to communicate to maintain independence. I'm going to contrast these between the men and the women. Uh, as I said, men communicate to maintain independence. Women communicate to maintain intimacy. And the sooner that we as husbands and wives learn the difference in how we communicate or how we express ourselves, the sooner that we learn to do that within our marriage relationships, the better and the more solid that relationship will tend to be. So men, as men, we want to maintain independence. And I remember, and I'm only mentioning this again as we go forward here, is that we as men we need significance, where our wives, females, need security. Very important to keep understanding that significance and that difference because this will help us to really relate to one another, really help to to not only establish, to maintain solid relationships. Now, men tend to use words to establish status, try to impress you, what we can do, what we're able to, what we have done. Women use words to bond emotionally. That's why sometimes I have to really think about understanding my wife because the way she talks to people, I say, why in your world go into all that detail? Just the facts, ma'am. That's all we need. We just want to establish the status. We want to just talk about what needs to be talked about. Thirdly, men tend to talk about sports, money, and business, while women discuss people, feelings, and relationships. That's why we men sometimes we just don't understand the things our wives talk about. We just think it sounds like a bunch of cackling hens or something, but they're discussing and they're using they're touching each other's feelings and they're discussing relationships and they're doing things like that to us as men mean very little, for the most part anyway. But that's what makes a woman tick. And so, because we have a different perspective, because we have a different ways of communication, it's important for us to really to realize and to honor our spouse and the differences that they have in order for them to communicate with others of their own kind. Now, we as men tend to talk to resolve problems. Women aren't like that. Women talk to connect and be understood. And that's herein is a key to why, as we'll see a little bit later on, one of the biggest gripes and complaints that women have is that we as men don't listen. Why? Because we want to talk, we want to resolve a problem. We want to solve this problem just so we can go on to something else. Not the wives. Females, they like to talk and they like to talk about connecting and being understood. And did you sure you get that? And I have never ceased to be amazed at Marty's ability to remember things 15 years ago down to the details sometimes of what people wore. And I have to scratch my head and say, wait a minute, was I even there? But she assures me that I was. And so it's just a different way of communicating and it's just a different way of expressing ourselves. And the sooner that we learn those differences and accommodate them in our spouse, the sooner we'll be on the right track to not only, as I said, maintain, but also strengthen our bond and our relationship. Now, we as men tend to talk more in public. We feel like that's what gives us the status. We feel that's what gives us independence. I have answers. You have questions, I have answers. We like to talk in public. We like to be heard. We like to be understood. We like to be looked at as someone who has the ability to solve problems. Women are the difference. They tend to talk more in private. And that's why my wife comes home from visiting our daughters or some other one of her lady friends, and she starts telling and sharing some of the things that she can share about the deep things they talk about. I says, man, why would you talk about that? We as men, we just want to solve the problems, and so we need to do that because most problems, in our estimation, are public. We'll talk public more because we want to get those problems solved. So it's just a different way of communicating, and we need to understand that. Now, we as men, we use words that are to the point without details. I mean, who needs a lot of details when you already have the answer? I mean, come on. I don't need to have every little jot and tittle of this conversation in my head and make sure that everything is done in order for me to have a solution. Women, totally different. The more detailed and apologetic and vague. That's how they talk. They're way more detailed and apologetic. They again, they're talking from emotion. They're talking from establishing and building and relationships. It is from an emotional level. Doesn't mean they're not very smart. Doesn't mean they're not intellectual. Doesn't mean they don't have knowledge about things. But they approach that knowledge from a completely different way. They approach it. They approach it from even though they're more detailed in some areas, but they can also be more apologetic and vague in others. We just say, let's get to the point without all the details. Now, we as men rarely discuss our personal life in a business setting. Business is business, personal is personal. And we are very, very determined to keep those two separated. Women are like that. Women tend to establish more business relationships through discussing their personal lives. Whoa. Think about that. Women, because they interact with the other people from an emotional and a personal standpoint, often that actually helps to establish business relationships into a greater degree than we as men who just primarily deal with facts. Maybe we can learn something, although at the same time, I don't think that a lot of business environments would really be all that interested in our personal details. But that's just the way we communicate. That's the way we have a different perspective of going and approaching a similar situation. Lastly, in this area, men tend to ask fewer questions to stimulate conversation. You tell me what you have to say. I'll hear what you have to say. I'll tell you what I have to say. We'll go on to the next subject. Women aren't like that. Women ask more questions to stimulate conversations. Why? Remember, they're dealing more on an emotional level, on a social level. They wanted to connect more. We tend to want to be a bit more standoffish, just the facts, in other words, we keep the environment to where I'm in control of my space and you're in control of your space, and we talk about it in that way because we're looking to solve a problem. Women aren't like that. They're looking to stimulate more conversation because out of that conversation they build relationships, and out of that relationships they tend to feel more secure and feel valued. And so it's just important that we understand the differences in some of these. And when we talk about value, we need to also contrast, which I'll contrast now, the different sense of value and esteem. What gives a man a sense of value? What gives a woman a sense of value? Again, these things are so important. They seem like you may think that these things are so elementary that who needs to go over them? Well, if you want a good, solid marriage, you'll apply some of these principles in your marriage and in your relationships, so that as a result of that, you're going to be building that relationship and becoming even more solid as time goes on. Now, from the perspective of a different sense of value and esteem, a man's sense of self is defined through his ability to achieve results. That is, through his success and accomplishment, achieved results prove his competence and enable him to feel significant and good about himself. I'll say that first part again. A man's sense of self is defined through his ability to achieve results. Why is that? Because we need significance. Now, a woman, on the other hand, a woman's sense of self is defined through her feelings and the quality of her relationships. Women spend more time supporting and nurturing and helping each other. They experience fulfillment through sharing and relating. We as men only find fulfillment in that way, in a much lesser degree. Again, our sense of fulfillment is through accomplishments. It's through solving problems. It's through establishing and maintaining goals, or I should say, achieving goals. Men tend to have a much more difficult time relating to their own feelings and may feel threatened by the expression of feelings in their presence. So many people we've talked to can definitely agree to that part. This can cause them to react by withdrawing or attempting to control the situation through a display of control and or power. So a man doesn't want to really get involved with personal things. He'll raise his voice in the conversation. He'll kind of square his shoulders, stand up a little straighter, trying to bring a bit of a form of intimidation if possible, because I've got to be in control of this circumstance. And if I share any feelings or any emotions, in my way of thinking, the man thinks, is that I'm losing control. I'm becoming soft. How does a woman respond? Women are in touch with a much wider range of feelings than men, and the intensity of those feelings are usually much greater for women than they are men. Women are feelers. They're more emotional. Scripture calls the women the weaker sex, but that doesn't mean that they're not very qualified. It doesn't mean they don't have great abilities. Doesn't mean they don't have intellectual abilities. Doesn't mean they don't have education. It's simply the way that God wired men and God wired women different. That's why all this nonsense with all this gender fluidity that's taking place today is going to create massive destructions in society in the coming years. It's going to be almost incalculable what's going to take place given it 5 to 10 years. Now, as a result of this, many men perceive that a woman's feelings appear to change quickly. Men often find this irrational and difficult to understand. Boy, isn't that the truth? We as men, we're more stoic. This is the way it is. Women, they have an ebb and flow with their emotions, and we as men sometimes can't figure out what in the world how they can change so quickly. Are there multiple personalities in there or what? No. It's just being a woman, and they have that God-given ability to just flow and have an ebb and flow in their emotions with the circumstances in front of them. We as men tend to change, or tend to have a much smaller or lesser ebb and flow than that is. Now, the most frequent complaint, listen to this, guys. The most frequent complaint men have about women is that women are always trying to change them. Oh boy, I sometimes have said in marriage, and when we did weddings, I've spoke to the bride, and I said, now listen, don't work so hard trying to change your husband that you forget about how to be a good wife yourself. On the other hand, the biggest and the most frequent complaint we have from women is that men don't listen. If you're hearing me, women, think about it, because that's the way it is. And we have that complaint time and time again. I try to talk to him, she says. I try to tell her how I feel about something, and he's not paying attention. He's thinking about sports, or he's thinking about what he's doing next week. Or he's thinking about last week's accomplishment. Just not listening. And I've said this before in these broadcasts. The art of listening is something that's gradually eroding from us, because everybody's sitting around with their thumbs doing this sort of thing. We need to learn to be present when we're in conversation especially with our spouse. Be present. Don't be wandering off in your mind someplace else. Be present. Now, men try to change a woman's mood when she is upset by offering solutions to her problems, which she interprets as discounting and invalidating her feelings. Oh boy, I had to learn that one, all right. I've never, in my younger days especially, have never been much of an emotional sort of a guy, because I didn't I didn't grow up with emotions at home. Everything was pretty cut and dry. You didn't, in the culture I was raised in the Amish culture, you didn't show a whole lot of emotion. You didn't show affection. And I had to really learn to allow the Lord to break that veneer down to where I could be more expressive and more emotional and show and just show my inner self, especially to Marty. Now, women, they try to change their husband's behavior by offering unsolicited advice, which he interprets as criticism and a home improvement committee. Wives, don't try to change your husband's behavior by giving him advice he's not asking for. It's not going to go well for you if you do that, because men want advice when they ask for it. But don't be offering a lot of advice to your husband if he's not asking for it. They will take that as thinking, "Oh boy, here we come. Here we go. You're just wanting to set me up for something else down the road." But that's not really. I know that's not really the case, but that's how it often is perceived. Now, as we understand these differences, as we relate together as husbands and wives, and as men and as women, men appreciate advice and criticism, as I was saying, when it's requested. Men want to make improvements when they feel they are being approached with a solution to a problem rather than just as the problem itself. So you got something is not working properly in the kitchen or properly working in the home somewhere. Give them the opportunity to provide a solution. Don't just present the problem. Give some suggestions, perhaps. "Oh, we could do this, or maybe we could consider doing this." Men want to have solutions. They don't want to be bothered with a lot of just the problems itself, although they're problem solvers. Now, women, on the other hand, when women are upset, it is not the time to offer solutions. Oh boy, though that may be appropriate at a future time when she's calmed down. And you ever ask your wife, "What's wrong, honey?" "Nothing." "Come on, I know something's wrong." "No, it's not. I'm fine." "Well, I just want to. What can I do to help?" "Nothing." Come on now. We've all been down that road. If you've been married for any length of time, you've been down that road. So when they're upset, it's not the time to offer solution. What is it the time for? It's a time to show some care, some nurturing, show some emotion. Show that you're really wanting to just, you're embracing their feelings. You're embracing their perspective. Going to go a long ways for you as husbands. Men need to receive trust and acceptance, appreciation, admiration, approval, and encouragement. Why? Because, as I've said time and time again in this series, and I'll keep saying it in the years ahead of us and in the many years that we counsel couples, we men need significance. We have very fragile egos, and we need to have our egos stroked by the people we love. That really causes our chest to be puffed up, and we're the man, we're the Prince Charming. Women they need to receive caring, understanding, respect, devotion, validation, and reassurance. In other words, security. That's why it's so important to know these differences. Because the more clearly we understand these differences, the more clear, the more capable we'll be of not only strengthening our relationship, but making it solid for our children's sake and for other generations to come. So in summing up this section here, men are motivated when they feel needed. Think about that, ladies. Cause your husband to feel real significance because you need him. Let him know how much you need him to do whatever it is. You need him for this, you need him for that. It's very, very important that you do that, because we as men, we need to feel needed. And so it's important that we have that ability to feel needed. Now, on the other hand, women are motivated when they feel special and cherished. So we, as I said, men need to be needed, women need to be cherished because they need to have security. And so if we can learn those things, we can go a long ways. And I'm just scrolling up on my iPad here to get to the next section. I want to just very briefly cover. But women need to have that sense of, honey, I love you. I care for. I really feel. Help me to understand what it is that you're going through. And as we do that, um, they feel secure, and as a result of that, they will respond to us in such a way as men. They'll respond to us that give us even greater significance. So I'm going to just kind of summarize this with wives and what you can do to help fulfill your husband's needs, so to make him feel significant. And then I'll also do the same thing just briefly as I start wrapping this up, as to make them feel secure. So wives, for your husband's needs, give him admiration. Praise his positive character traits. Reassure him of his capabilities. Respect his burden of responsibility. This can go a long ways to make a man feel significant, feel that he is really loved, he's needed, he's appreciated, his family respects him, and this goes a long ways to making a man be a man. And it really is. Having said that, it really is time for men to be men. So many people once asked me, why are there so many strong women around? And I said, my answer to them was very, very easy, because there's so many weak men. But so many times the reason men become weak is the wives don't give them significance. And this is important. Give them domestic support. Provide a peaceful home atmosphere. Manage your home effectively and efficiently. Verbalize appreciation for his provisions. Your husband works hard. He goes out there in the world. He deals with all the stuff going on in the world, all the things coming at him. Let him know you appreciate that. Maybe you're in the workplace as well, but your husband is in a dog eat dog world out there so many times. So let him know that you appreciate what he's doing for you. Companionship, develop a mutual interest together. Learn to talk knowledge about your husband's occupation. Do some research. Find out what he's interested in, and become proficient in the activities that he enjoys. Attractiveness. Develop an inner beauty that earns respect. And our external beauty is one thing, but boy, I'll tell you what, someone that is both beautiful on the outside and on the inside, that's a treasure that the scripture says is value way above rubies. Display an inner strength regardless of outward circumstances. Ask God for grace to get through the day. Ask him for grace to really be able to be a helpmate and a strength and an encouragement for your husband. Dress in appropriate feminine manners. If your husband loves for you to dress a certain way, dress that way for his. Even if you don't particularly care that way, if he likes for you to see you in a certain dress or whatever attire when he comes home from work, try to do your best to meet him in that way, because he will give you a great security, because he realizes that you're giving him significance. You're responding to something he cares about. Sexual fulfillment. As a wife, be a responsive wife. Let him know. Communicate your sexual needs. Let your husband know what pleasures you. Let him know what really you like and what you don't like. And as I've said before in these broadcasts, the marriage bed has a lot of leniency in it. The scripture says the marriage bed is undefiled. But that defilement or undefiledness does not mean that we can violate our spouse's conscience. Never, ever attempt to violate your spouse's conscience in the marriage bed. Give him assurance. Give your husband assurance that he is sexually adequate. As I said, we men have very fragile egos, and we don't. Probably one of the greatest blows to our ego is our sense of feeling that we're not pleasing our wife. We're not causing her to come to fulfillment. We're not meeting her needs sexually. That's probably one of the most devastating blows that a man can experience. And trust me, talking to a lot of men over the 50 years of ministry, I know the struggles that can take place there. Now, I'm going to flip the side and say, for husband, here's what you need to do for your wife to strengthen your relationship. Give her affection. Give her hugs and kisses and touches. Tell her how much you care for her. Give her cards and flowers and gifts. Now, I realize that different people have different love gifts. And some people, gifts don't mean much. I'm one of those people. I didn't grow up receiving gifts, and so gifts don't mean much to me. I have other areas that fill my love tank. Find out what fills her love tank, and give that kind of affection, so that as you do that, she has your love tank filled up and feels really secure with you. Communicate. Learn to communicate. Talk on the feeling level. I know for some guys this is very, very difficult, but you need to learn to a degree. Talk on a feeling level, and then listen with concern and interest. Don't be thinking about next week's work project while your wife is trying to tell you something. Listen, be present, focus, encourage and praise her positive character traits, just like you want her to do that for you. Encourage her. If she's home with the children and you come home, ask her how her day went. Ask her, how did you have a good day today? You're tired. Can I do something to help you? Communicate, encourage, and praise her. Man, that was a great meal you just made. Wow, you look so beautiful tonight as we went out. Give her some encouragement. Be honest. Commit to total truthfulness. Share your true thoughts, your feelings and desires. Share them. Become vulnerable with each other. As I've said in another broadcast, that there's a difference between being vulnerable and being transparent. Transparent deals with the past. I can tell you all about my past and be transparent about that, but I won't let you come into me in the present. That's where we become vulnerable. Be honest. Discuss your plans and your activities clearly. Discuss what you want. Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? What do you have? What's your goals for your children? How can you help them achieve those goals? All those are kind of things you can talk about. Financial security. She needs security. And so shoulder the financial responsibility, even though she may have employment and doing her part as well. But you do your part. Don't just slough off and just try to live off of her abilities. No. You be the man, and you do what you need to be doing and what you can do. Consult on her on how to best use finances. A lot of times women have a better sense of finances than men do. We may not like to admit that, but because they are more feeling oriented, sometimes they'll feel something that we don't feel, and they'll have an inner sense about something that we need to learn to respect. Discuss your plans and activities. I always said it. Prepare a budget together and plan for the future. Very important. One of the areas that often brings trouble in the marriage is finances. Usually it's finances, religion, children, sex. Those are usually the four main areas where couples have breakdowns. But, work together and get some financial, do your planning together, prepare a budget. Now, and lastly on this, make a commitment. Make your wife and family your highest earthly priority. Schedule quality time and quality time alone with her. Oh, I cannot overstate the need that you have to maintain a regular date schedule. I don't care if you're married a year or 50 years. You need to have time together as a couple for date nights. Doesn't have to be extravagant. Doesn't have to be a real financial burden. Just time together. Remember, that makes her feel very special. It makes her feel secure. And it'll also make you, guys, it'll make you feel significant. Verbalize your commitment to her often. Verbalize. Tell her, look, honey, you're the best thing than sliced bread. You're the best thing that's happened to me outside of Jesus. Verbalize those things. Talk to her. Encourage her in that. And lastly, if you really want to work on this and you realize that I've touched some things that you need to work on, make a list of the special things you feel would please your mate. Make a list of it. A wife might show her husband respect by asking for his advice. A husband can encourage his wife by seeking her opinion about his friends and business activities. Each week, try to practice one thing on your list. Well, these are some of the areas that I believe that we can work together as we understand the differences in how we communicate and how we approach things. And hopefully this has been helpful for you. I'd really appreciate if you're enjoying these, write a comment in the comment section below. the video, subscribe to the video so that you know that others are coming. And I've, there's several more in this series on marriage that that I'm going to be putting out before we go to something else. But let me know you've appreciated it. Let me know you've enjoyed them. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. God bless you. You have a wonderful day.